very happy to be here with you all. Very interesting presentations indeed. And from my end, I am going to talk about the sustainability and the resilient recovery after COVID. COVID is not over, as everybody knows, and it has impacted employers and companies. We have done a survey as the Malta Employers Association. We have done 3 surveys along this journey, actually, and I will be presenting some statistics and some results that we have published. But first, I'm going to start with the unfamiliar changes that employers and companies are facing due to COVID-19. Like many other countries, in March, the Maltese government has adopted several measures to prevent the spread of COVID, and this had major consequences on companies, some sectors obviously more than others. So for example, we had a measure of mandatory closure of companies, obviously not all companies, and this has reduced sales and reduction in working hours. In some companies also redundancies. We had the bans on mass events, so cancellation of festas, cancellation of weddings, which obviously affected the cancellation of bookings, not only on the mass events itself, but it had reduced bookings of marketing companies, for example, and those responsible for adverts. We had the closure of the airport, so obviously we had less tourism, the cancellation of bookings of hotels, of restaurants, museums and heritage sites. They were practically open, they were practically closed. The closure of schools, which affected companies because parents couldn't go to work, those who cannot telework. And for this, the government helped with assisting, introducing a scheme for parents who couldn't go to work. We had the shutdown of vulnerable persons, those over 65 plus, and those that have a disorder or disease were advised not to go to work and not to go outside. So we had a problem with technical staff. 65 plus, they tend to be the most knowledgeable, the mentors of the companies. So we lacked technical staff, which could not be easily replaced. We had the repatriation of third country nationals, and permit renewals were stopped. We have a huge labor market shortage in Malta, with the shortage of skills, and this has left a big impact on companies, and obviously the instability of the period, the unmotivated employees, the lower productivity, mental health of the whole workplace practically. As you can see, in the first diagram, this survey was done in September. It was the 3rd survey, as I have already mentioned, and as you can see from the graph, 81% of companies had a loss in business, suffered a loss in business, and few were the companies that had actually benefited from this whole situation. Redundancies are still low in Malta, and this is due to the fact that the government has introduced the COVID wage supplement, which assists companies in covering part of the salary of individuals. And this is in fact why there is 81% that have not turned to redundancies. And the second question was, is your company likely to reduce its labor force from current levels in the coming 3 months? And we can see that the 19% who said yes, it's still practically low. 43% maybe, and 38% no. Obviously, there is a lot of instability in the whole situation, so the 43% is due to that. Now the government, with the latest budget that was issued this Monday, the government will extend the COVID wage supplement to till March 2021, which will obviously help the companies to recover. Some solutions and practical examples that have been adopted by companies and will continue to be adopted even post-COVID due to its success. We had a number of companies had to change the conditions of work. Some companies, so reduced working week, for example, the use of vacation leave, unpaid leave, and even in some companies, in some sectors, the reassignment of different duties to employees. Changes in conditions of work requires the permission of the Department of Labour, which obviously needs a discussion between employers and employees and the Department of Labour. And this is where information and consultation took place. With regards in COVID-19, we have seen an increase of company representatives being appointed. The law in Malta is that every company employing more than 50 employees has to have a company representative, an employee representative. And due to COVID, we have seen an increase in this. The employee representative discussing with the management what is going to happen, how the company and its workers are going to survive practically this pandemic. So this is a very positive outcome due to COVID. And obviously these conditions of work are given the temporary measures every 4 weeks. So discussion is done on a continuous basis. Another solution that is being implemented due to COVID is the different modes of work, the flexibility and the teleworking. A lot of companies have adopted to teleworking, and the government and health authorities are proposing and encouraging employers to provide teleworking to their employees whenever possible. I didn't include it here in the presentation, but we have also asked the question if the employees who are teleworking are actually producing the same amount of work, and a large number said that yes. Obviously, there were some companies that said no, it declined, the productivity declined, but a big number of companies will continue to use teleworking and other flexible mode of work even following COVID. The association has issued a position paper on teleworking and remote working, and this was done practically. The starting point was also COVID. The setting up of e-commerce platforms. We had a very low percentage of e-commerce platforms in Malta, like 3% of companies, and we have seen an increase due to COVID on e-commerce platforms. Those companies who had already been set up with their e-commerce platforms had a competitive advantage over others who had practically to shut down. So this helped a lot. Firms seek to adapt or die, and this is the new motto of COVID. This is a small example of a bakery in Malta, quite a small bakery. They have like one restaurant in St. Julian's, who instead of like close down and shut their doors due to this pandemic, reinvented their idea, reinvented themselves, collaborated with a taxi company and started to offer meals and deliver all over the island at very competitive prices. So this is the new reality, and how companies have to continuously recreate and use innovation to keep on surviving. The focusing on local tourism, you know that Malta is a very small island dependent heavily on tourism, and employers tried to diversify tourism by focusing on locals. So, for example, weekend stays in hotels. There were a lot of advertising for the sister island in Gozo, which saw huge an increase in tourism, local tourism, obviously, and also the still targeting specific foreign tourists by using virtual reality of museums and heritage sites. A number of companies also are using this downtime to upskill their employees. The government has also issued a number of courses, free online courses for workers to upgrade their skills in various sectors, and the vulnerable people who, as I told you, are the technical staff, are also being used as mentors in this unstable period. So this is something also that companies have used their downtime to continue upskilling in this very rapid changing world of work. There is a lot of mental health awareness in all this, the recognition of having healthy workplaces, employers offering therapy by partnering with other NGOs and specialists in the area, and having informed decisions. The challenges ahead, obviously, COVID is not over. It's very much in its peak at the moment. In Malta, we are having a lot of cases, around 150 to 100 a day, which is very, very alarming in Malta. Business recovery, according to survey, it's expected to take more than a year and a half. So there are still challenges ahead. The survey showed that the commencement of investment projects have been postponed. 60% have been postponed, and the reactivation of such projects is still very unstable. 51% saying that they are in the middle. Okay, so it shows the unstable times and the flexibility of the market practically. Another challenge is how to sustain the current workforce to avoid redundancies, to avoid closing down. And we've asked, do you envisage that your business will depend on extended government support in 2021? And 44% of survey respondents have answered yes. This has been confirmed, as I told you, by the government, that it will be extended till March 2021. However, we don't know the guidelines yet. We don't know the specifications, so it might increase, it might decrease, and it will not be sustainable for businesses to keep on with the current situations. the reclosing of schools due to an increased percentage in the number of cases. We are seeing a big increase in the quarantine leave. Employees are being asked to quarantine due to, for example, having living in the same quarters of a person that is with the virus, and this is having a great impact on employers. There is a scheme, the quarantine leave scheme, where the government is assisting the employer by giving a €350 grant. However, the majority of the salary would have to be covered by the employer. The roles of employers and business support organizations in all this. We are trying to keep businesses informed of the latest information through updates we are sending on social media and through mass mail of all the schemes and announcements, the changes in legislation and guidelines, for example, mitigation measures for workplaces. We have also introduced a new handbook, which is completely online. It's the COVID-19 Employers Handbook, which has all the information related to the schemes, announcements, legislation, and so on and so forth. We have created, as Malta Employers Association, a series of webinars. We've presented like 15 webinars so far on related topics related to the pandemic. For example, health and safety, data protection, financial schemes, even to reskill and to build, for example, introduction to e-commerce and how to build a digital strategy, crisis management. And we are doing a list of frequently asked questions that can also be found in the Employer's Handbook. We are also in the process of doing TV programs on different subjects related to COVID-19, and one of them it started in October and it ends in June. And one of them is also the different modes of work, the changes in conditions of work, etc. We are collecting information, as I've just presented, the surveys to keep on testing business performances and predict how predict the future practically in these unstable times. We are also meeting and creating focus groups where we are presenting the survey results by sector and discussing in further detail so as to have an informed decision and keep updating. And we are also collaborating with the National Statistics Office to compare and analyze qualitative and quantitative data. Discussions with different stakeholders, managing authorities. So for example, as I've mentioned, the Department of Industrial Relations and Labour, we have a very good relationship. We assist employers on how to go about the changes in conditions of work, what the legislation is saying, what you are supposed to do, and even mitigation between the employer and the Department of Industrial Relations. The fora of the Malta Council for Economic and Social Development Board, which is a representation of employers, employees, civil society, and the government, and this is being practically meeting every week, every 2 weeks, to discuss the latest changes. As I told you, the budget of next year was presented to us on Monday, so discussions have been very active in this council to present, obviously, the perspective of the employer and the employee and other stakeholders. We are also participating in various webinars and conferences to exchange information, the challenges, what we are facing, and the sharing of best practices through several international bodies, and obviously lobbying with government through the presentation of research studies with recommendations, position papers, and advertising on the media. That was everything from my end. You can find my contact details. Should you have any questions, please, I'll be happy to answer.